Hello, beautiful soul. I want you to take a deep breath with me right now. Just breathe in slowly and breathe out even more slowly. Good. I'm so grateful that you've chosen to spend this time with yourself today. That choice alone tells me something wonderful about you. It tells me that somewhere deep inside, you know you're worth this time, this attention, this love. I know life hasn't always been easy. I know there are days when you wake up and that familiar heaviness sits right there on your chest, whispering those old stories about not being enough, not doing enough, not having enough. Those voices that tell you that change is too hard, that you've tried before and nothing worked, that maybe this is just how life is supposed to be for you. Well, I'm here to tell you something different today. I'm here to share with you something that shifted everything for me in less than an hour. Yes, you heard that correctly, less than 1 hour. And I know that might sound too good to be true, especially if you've been carrying pain for years, if you've been struggling with the same patterns over and over again. But sometimes, the most profound changes happen in the simplest moments when we finally give ourselves permission to try something different. You see, we often think that healing has to be this long, complicated journey. We think we need to analyze every childhood wound, understand every pattern, fix every broken piece before we can feel better. And while deeper work certainly has its place, there's also something to be said for those moments of grace, those breakthrough experiences where something shifts so quickly and so completely that it takes your breath away. I want to create a space for that kind of moment right here, right now. This isn't about fixing you because you're not broken. This isn't about changing everything about your life overnight, although some beautiful changes might certainly begin today. This is about returning to something you already know deep inside, returning to the truth of who you really are beneath all those layers of conditioning and fear and old pain. The practice I'm going to share with you came to me during one of those times when I felt completely stuck. You know those times when you've read all the books, tried all the techniques, said all the affirmations, and yet somehow you still feel like you're running in circles, still feel like something essential is missing. I was sitting in my garden one afternoon, feeling frustrated with myself, questioning whether any of this inner work really made a difference. And that's when something beautiful happened. Not some dramatic, earth-shaking revelation, but something quiet and simple and so obvious that I almost missed it. Sometimes the most powerful truths are the ones hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to get quiet enough and humble enough to notice them. What I discovered that day, what shifted everything in such a short time, was a way of being with myself that I had somehow forgotten. A way of listening that goes deeper than words, a way of loving that doesn't require fixing or changing anything. It was as if I suddenly remembered how to speak my own language, how to hear my own wisdom, how to trust my own heart again. Now, I know that each of us is unique, and what works for one person might work differently for another. But there's something about this particular practice that seems to touch something universal in all of us, that place where we all long to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel like we belong in our own lives. Before we go any further, I want you to know that whatever you're feeling right now is perfectly okay. If part of you is excited and hopeful, wonderful. If part of you is skeptical or tired of trying new things, that's understandable too. If you're feeling a mix of emotions, that's completely normal. All of these feelings can coexist, and all of them are welcome here. The truth is, we've all been conditioned to believe certain things about ourselves and about life. We've learned to see ourselves through the eyes of others, parents, teachers, friends, society, and somewhere along the way, we often lose touch with our own inner knowing. We start believing that our worth depends on our achievements, our appearance, our ability to please others, our capacity to be perfect. These beliefs run so deep that we often don't even realize we're carrying them. They become like background music in our minds, playing the same old songs of limitation and fear. You're not good enough. You don't deserve love. Life is hard. People can't be trusted. There's not enough to go around. You have to struggle to be worthy. And here's what's so fascinating about these beliefs. They're not even ours to begin with. We inherited them, absorbed them, took them on as truth when we were too young to know any better. A child who gets criticized learns to criticize themselves. A child who doesn't feel seen learns to make themselves invisible. A child who experiences chaos learns to expect chaos. These patterns make perfect sense when we understand them as survival strategies, ways our young minds figured out how to navigate a world that didn't always feel safe. But here's the beautiful thing about being human. We're not stuck with these old programs forever. Our brains are incredibly plastic, constantly creating new neural pathways based on our experiences and thoughts. Every moment offers us a chance to choose something different, to practice a new way of thinking, to create a new pattern. The challenge is that these old beliefs don't usually announce themselves clearly. They show up in subtle ways, in the way we talk to ourselves when we make a mistake, in the way we hold our bodies when we're around certain people, in the automatic thoughts that arise when we try something new. They show up as that inner critic that seems to have an opinion about everything we do, as the anxiety that whispers what-if scenarios, as the sadness that tells us we're all alone in this world. Most of us spend so much energy trying to think our way out of these feelings, trying to convince ourselves that we shouldn't feel what we feel. We pile positive thoughts on top of painful emotions, hoping that if we just think enough good thoughts, the pain will go away. But feelings don't work that way. Feelings want to be felt, not fixed. They want to be heard, not hushed. They want to be acknowledged, not analyzed away. This is where so many of us get stuck. We turn our healing journey into another form of self-improvement, another way to be better, another performance we have to perfect. We make our worth dependent on how well we can meditate, how positive we can stay, how quickly we can transform our lives. And when we inevitably have a difficult day or fall back into an old pattern, we use it as evidence that we're failing, that we're not spiritual enough, that we're hopeless. But what if healing isn't about becoming someone different? What if it's about returning to who we've always been beneath all the conditioning? What if it's not about fixing our flaws, but about embracing our wholeness? What if the very things we think are wrong with us are actually doorways to deeper compassion, deeper wisdom, deeper love? This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of seeing our struggles as signs of failure, we can begin to see them as invitations to greater self-understanding. Instead of judging our emotions as good or bad, we can begin to see them as messengers, each one carrying important information about what we need, what we value, what we long for. When I was sitting in my garden that day, feeling so frustrated with myself, I realized I was doing exactly what I had been taught to do my whole life. I was treating myself like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be loved. I was so focused on getting somewhere else, becoming someone else, that I had completely forgotten how to simply be with myself as I was in that moment. And that's when it hit me. What if the very thing I was seeking, peace, love, acceptance, joy, wasn't something I had to earn or achieve or become worthy of? What if it was something I could access right now in this very moment simply by changing how I was relating to myself? This wasn't about positive thinking or forcing myself to feel better. This was about something much simpler and much more radical. It was about treating myself with the same kindness I would offer a dear friend, the same compassion I would show to a frightened child, the same unconditional love I would give to someone I cherished deeply. What happened next surprised me completely. as I began to soften toward myself, to speak to myself with genuine kindness, something in my body began to relax. The tight knot in my chest started to loosen. The critical voice in my head grew quieter, and in that space of gentleness, something else began to emerge. A quiet knowing, a deep peace, a sense of coming home to myself. It wasn't dramatic. There were no fireworks or sudden revelations. It was more like taking off shoes that had been too tight for so long that you'd forgotten what comfort felt like. It was like finally exhaling after holding your breath for years. It was like remembering a song you used to love but hadn't heard in ages. The whole experience lasted maybe 45 minutes, but in that short time, something fundamental shifted. Not everything about my life changed. I still had the same challenges, the same relationships, the same daily concerns, but my relationship with all of it changed. I found myself approaching difficulties with more curiosity and less panic. I noticed myself speaking to others with more patience and understanding. I felt more present in my body, more connected to my own heart. Most people don't realize how intimately connected our thoughts and our bodies really are. We've been taught to think of them as separate things, the mind up here, the body down there, each operating independently. But the truth is, they're in constant conversation with each other every single moment of every single day. When you think a fearful thought, your body responds immediately. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tighten, your breathing becomes shallow. When you think a loving thought, your body softens, your breathing deepens, your whole system relaxes. This isn't just poetry or wishful thinking, this is basic biology. Your thoughts are literally creating chemistry in your body. I learned this lesson in the most visceral way when I was going through my own healing journey years ago. I would notice that certain thoughts would create an instant knot in my stomach, while other thoughts would make my whole body feel light and expansive. At first, I thought this was just coincidence, but as I paid closer attention, I realized there was a clear pattern. Thoughts of self-criticism created tension. Thoughts of self-acceptance created ease. This discovery was revolutionary for me because it meant that I had much more control over how I felt than I had ever realized. If my thoughts could create tension in my body, they could also create relaxation. If harsh thoughts could make me feel sick, loving thoughts could help me feel well. The key was learning to pay attention to these subtle signals from my body and using them as a guide for choosing my thoughts more consciously. Your body is incredibly wise. It knows when you're lying to yourself, when you're forcing positivity over genuine feelings, when you're trying to think your way out of emotions that need to be felt. It also knows when you're being authentic, when you're aligned with your truth, when you're treating yourself with genuine love and respect. Think about a time when someone complimented you, but you didn't believe them. Maybe they said you looked beautiful, but inside you were thinking, "No, I don't." Notice what happened in your body in that moment. Did you feel open and expanded, or did you feel contracted and closed off? Most likely, your body reflected the thought you believed rather than the words you heard. Now think about a time when you felt genuinely appreciated and loved, when someone's words landed in your heart as truth. Notice the difference in your body. This is your inner wisdom responding to alignment versus conflict, truth versus resistance. This body wisdom becomes our greatest teacher when we're learning to shift our internal patterns. Instead of trying to figure everything out with our minds, we can use our bodies as a compass. When a thought feels heavy, tight, or constrictive in your body, it's usually a sign that this thought isn't serving you. When a thought feels light, open, and expansive, it's often a sign that you're moving in a direction that supports your well-being. The practice I'm about to share with you works specifically with this mind-body connection. We're not going to try to force positive thoughts or push away difficult emotions. Instead, we're going to create a conversation between your mind and your body that allows both to feel heard, both to feel valued, both to feel loved. This is important because so many of us have learned to live from the neck up, treating our bodies like vehicles that carry our heads around. We ignore the messages our bodies are constantly sending us until they get so loud, through illness, exhaustion, or chronic pain, that we're forced to pay attention. But what if we could listen to these more subtle messages? What if we could catch the early signals that tell us we're moving away from our authentic selves? What if we could use our body's wisdom to guide us back to center before we get completely lost? In the practice we're about to do together, you'll learn to create a state of deep listening, not just with your ears, but with your whole being. You'll learn to sense the difference between thoughts that create expansion and thoughts that create contraction. You'll discover how to speak to yourself in a way that your body recognizes as safe, as loving, as home. Now let me guide you into the heart of this practice. I want you to find a comfortable position, somewhere you won't be disturbed for the next little while. You don't need to sit in any particular way. Just find a position that feels good in your body right now. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable, or soften your gaze toward the floor. Take a few natural breaths, not trying to change anything, just noticing how you're breathing right now. Notice if your breath is quick or slow, shallow or deep, smooth or jagged. There's no right way to breathe in this moment. We're just beginning to pay attention. Now I want you to place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. Feel the warmth of your hands against your body. This simple gesture sends a signal to your nervous system that you're safe, that you're cared for, that you're not alone. With your hands in this position, I want you to say these words out loud, even if they feel strange at first. Hello, dear body. Hello, sweetheart. I'm here with you now. Say it as if you're greeting an old friend you haven't seen in a while. Say it with genuine warmth and affection. Notice what happens in your body when you speak to yourself this way. Do you feel any softening, any relaxation, any sense of relief? Don't worry if you don't feel anything dramatic. Sometimes the shifts are very subtle at first. Just notice whatever is there. Now I want you to think about how you typically talk to yourself when you make a mistake or when something doesn't go as planned. Most of us have a very harsh internal voice that immediately jumps in with criticism. For just a moment, let yourself hear that voice without trying to change it or judge it. Just notice what it sounds like, what it usually says. As you tune into that critical voice, notice what happens in your body. Does your breathing change? Do your muscles tighten? Does your stomach clench? Do your shoulders rise toward your ears? This is your body's way of telling you that this kind of self-talk creates stress, that it moves you away from a state of well-being. Now, keeping your hands on your heart and belly, I want you to speak to that critical part of yourself with compassion. You might say something like, I hear you and I understand you're trying to protect me. Thank you for caring, but right now, I'm choosing to speak to myself with love. This isn't about getting rid of the critical voice that rarely works and often creates more internal conflict. Instead, we're acknowledging it while consciously choosing a different approach. We're setting a boundary with love rather than with force. Now comes the most important part of this practice. I want you to think of someone in your life whom you love unconditionally, maybe a child, a dear friend, a beloved pet. Picture this being in your mind and notice how your heart naturally opens toward them. Feel that quality of unconditional love that flows from you toward them without any effort. Notice how this love feels in your body. Notice the warmth, the softness, the expansion. This is your natural capacity for love. It's not something you have to create or earn. It's something you already possess, something that flows through you quite naturally when you're not blocking it with criticism or fear. Now here's the practice that changed everything for me. I want you to take that same quality of love, that same energy of pure acceptance and compassion, and turn it toward yourself. Not toward an improved version of yourself, not toward the person you think you should be, but toward yourself exactly as you are right now, with all your struggles and imperfections and beautiful human messiness. Place your attention in your heart and say, I choose to love myself the way I love whoever you thought of. I choose to see myself through the eyes of love. I choose to treat myself with the same kindness I would offer to someone I cherish. This might feel uncomfortable at first. You might hear that critical voice protesting, saying you don't deserve this kind of love, that you haven't earned it, that it's selfish or self-indulgent. If that happens, just acknowledge those thoughts gently and return your attention to your heart, to the warmth of your hands, to the choice you're making in this moment. Breathe into this choice to love yourself. Let it fill your chest, your belly, your whole body. You're not trying to feel anything in particular. You're simply practicing a new way of relating to yourself. You're learning to be your own loving friend instead of your own worst critic. As you continue breathing with this intention, you might notice emotions arising. This is completely normal and actually a sign that the practice is working. When we've been harsh with ourselves for a long time, choosing love can bring up old sadness, old grief, old longing to be treated kindly. Let these emotions flow through you without trying to fix them or understand them. They're part of the healing process. Keep breathing, keep holding yourself with love, keep choosing compassion over criticism. Notice that you can do this, that despite what your mind might be telling you, you actually do have the capacity to love yourself in this way. It's not something you have to learn or develop. It's something you simply have to remember and practice. If your mind starts wandering to your to-do list or your problems or your worries, gently bring your attention back to your heart, back to your hands, back to this choice to treat yourself with love. This is the practice, not forcing your mind to be quiet, but gently returning to love over and over again. Stay with this for a few more moments, letting this energy of self-love and self-acceptance settle into your cells, into your bones, into your very being. You're creating new neural pathways right now, new patterns of thinking and feeling and being with yourself. You're healing old wounds simply by choosing to love yourself in this moment. Now that you've experienced this shift in your body, this softening in your heart, I want to help you anchor this new energy so that it becomes a part of your daily life rather than just a beautiful moment that fades away. The truth is, our nervous systems are designed to return to familiar patterns, even when those patterns don't serve us. So we need to be intentional about creating new grooves, new pathways, new habits of self-love. First, notice how you feel right now. Really take a moment to sense into your body. Is there more space in your chest? Do your shoulders feel different? Has your breathing changed? Are you holding yourself differently? These physical sensations are not just side effects of the practice, they're actually the most important part. Your body is literally reorganizing itself around this new energy of self-acceptance. I want you to remember this feeling, this sense of being at home in your own skin. This is your natural state when you're not fighting against yourself, when you're not trying to be someone other than who you are. This easiness, this flow, this sense of inner harmony, this is available to you all the time. It's not something special that only happens during practices like this. It's your birthright. But here's what I've learned about change. It doesn't usually happen all at once and then stay that way forever. Real transformation is more like learning to play a musical instrument. At first, you have to be very conscious about every note, every movement. But with practice, it becomes more natural, more fluid, until eventually it becomes second nature. So how do we practice this new way of being with ourselves? How do we make self-love and self-acceptance as automatic as breathing? The key is to start small and be consistent rather than trying to overhaul your entire inner world overnight. Throughout your day, you can return to this practice in micro moments. When you notice yourself starting to spiral into self-criticism, you can place a hand on your heart and take 3 conscious breaths. When you catch yourself comparing your inside to someone else's outside, you can pause and say silently, "I choose to be gentle with myself right now." The power is in the pause. Most of us are so used to the automatic flow from trigger to reaction that we forget there's a space in between where choice lives. In that space, you can ask yourself, how do I want to speak to myself right now? What would love do in this moment? How can I be my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy? Another beautiful way to anchor this energy is through your morning routine. Before you even get out of bed, before you check your phone or start thinking about your day, place your hands on your heart and take 5 loving breaths. Set an intention to treat yourself kindly throughout the day. This simple practice creates a foundation of self-compassion that can support you through whatever challenges arise. You might also notice that this new energy affects how you move through the world. When you're at peace with yourself, you naturally become more patient with others. When you're not constantly fighting an internal battle, you have more energy available for creativity, for joy, for connection. This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about removing the obstacles to who you've always been. Pay attention to the small signs of change. Maybe you notice that you don't immediately jump to worst-case scenarios when something unexpected happens. Maybe you find yourself speaking up for your needs more easily. Maybe you catch yourself smiling for no particular reason. These aren't trivial moments. They're evidence that something fundamental is shifting in how you relate to life. The beautiful thing about this practice is that it tends to ripple outward in ways you might not expect. When you stop needing others to validate your worth, your relationships become more authentic. When you're not constantly seeking approval, you can show up more genuinely. When you treat yourself with kindness, you naturally extend that same kindness to others. You might find that people respond differently to you, though you're not trying to change anything about how you interact with them. There's something about the energy of self-acceptance that gives others permission to relax around you. When you're not judging yourself harshly, others don't feel judged by you either. This shows up in the smallest interactions. Maybe the cashier at the grocery store starts chatting with you more freely. Maybe your children seem more willing to share what's really going on in their lives. Maybe your coworkers include you in conversations more naturally. These shifts happen not because you're doing anything different externally, but because your internal energy has changed. In your family relationships, you might notice that you're less reactive to old triggers. That comment from your mother that used to send you into a tailspin might still sting a little, but you don't take it as evidence that you're fundamentally flawed. You can hear it as information about her state of mind rather than truth about your worth. At work, you might find that you're less afraid to share your ideas or take on new challenges. When you're not constantly worried about proving your value, you can focus more on contributing your unique gifts. You might discover talents and interests you had suppressed because they didn't fit the image of who you thought you should be. In romantic relationships, this practice can be revolutionary. When you're not looking to your partner to complete you or validate you, the relationship becomes a place of mutual support rather than mutual neediness. You can love more freely because you're not desperately trying to earn love in return. Even your relationship with difficult emotions changes. Instead of seeing sadness or fear or anger as evidence that something is wrong with you, you can begin to see them as natural responses to life's challenges. You can hold space for these feelings without being overwhelmed by them, knowing that they will pass and that they don't define you. Building this new neural pathway requires patience and repetition, just like any other skill. Some days will feel easier than others. Some days you'll remember to be kind to yourself, and other days you'll slip back into old patterns of self-criticism. This is completely normal and expected. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. To support yourself on this journey, I want to give you some tools you can use whenever you need them. First, create what I call a self-compassion toolkit, a collection of phrases, practices, and reminders that help you return to love when you've forgotten. Your toolkit might include simple phrases like, "This is a moment of difficulty. Difficulty is part of life. May I be kind to myself in this moment." Or, "I am learning and growing. I don't have to be perfect to be worthy of love." Or, "This feeling will pass. I can breathe through this with compassion." Journaling can be a powerful part of your toolkit, but instead of using your journal to analyze your problems or figure out what's wrong with you, try using it as a place to practice self-compassion. When something challenging happens, write about it as if you were comforting a dear friend going through the same situation. You might write, "Sweet one, I know this is hard. I know you're doing your best with what you have right now. I see how much you care, how much effort you're putting in. You don't have to have all the answers today. You just have to be gentle with yourself as you figure things out." Another powerful practice is what I call loving mirror work. This doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming. Simply look at yourself in the mirror and practice speaking to yourself with kindness. You might start by just saying, "Hello, beautiful," or "I see you and I love you." If that feels too challenging at first, you can start with something simpler like, "I'm willing to learn to love you," or "I'm here for you." Create affirmations that feel authentic to you right now, even if they stretch you a little. Instead of trying to convince yourself of something you don't believe, choose affirmations that feel like gentle possibilities. I am learning to trust myself. I am open to seeing myself through loving eyes. I deserve kindness, especially from myself. Remember that affirmations work best when they're paired with feeling. It's not about repeating words mechanically. It's about finding the feeling state that the words point toward and anchoring that feeling in your body. So when you say, "I am worthy of love," take a moment to sense what worthiness might feel like in your chest, in your belly, in your whole being. You can also create what I call compassion breaks throughout your day. Set a gentle reminder on your phone to pause and ask yourself, "How am I doing right now? What do I need? How can I show myself some love in this moment?" Sometimes the answer will be taking 3 deep breaths. Sometimes it will be getting a glass of water or stepping outside for fresh air. Sometimes it will simply be acknowledging that you're having a hard time and that it's okay to have hard times. Build rituals that support your commitment to self-love. Maybe it's making your morning tea with extra care, treating it as an act of self-nurturing. Maybe it's taking 5 minutes before bed to appreciate yourself for something you did well that day, no matter how small. Maybe it's walking in nature and practicing gratitude for your body and all it does for you. The key is consistency over intensity. A few minutes of genuine self-compassion every day is far more powerful than an hour of forced positivity once a week. You're literally rewiring your brain, creating new patterns of thought and feeling. This happens through repetition, through choosing love over criticism again and again until it becomes your new default. As you continue this practice, be patient with the process. Some days you'll feel like you're making tremendous progress. Other days you'll feel like you're back at the beginning. This is the natural rhythm of growth. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, then 3 steps forward. Trust the process even when you can't see the progress. And please remember that you don't have to wait until you've mastered self-love to start living fully. You can begin making choices from a place of self-respect right now, even while you're still learning. You can start saying no to things that drain you and yes to things that nourish you. You can begin treating your dreams as valid and your needs as important. The most beautiful thing about this journey is that it's uniquely yours. There's no timeline you have to follow, no standard you have to meet, no way you're supposed to do it. You get to discover what self-love looks like for you, what practices resonate with your heart, what words feel most healing to your spirit. As we come to the end of our time together, I want you to know how proud I am of you for taking this step, for being willing to try something new, for choosing to invest in your relationship with yourself. That choice alone, the choice to spend this time exploring a more loving way of being with yourself, is evidence of your innate wisdom and strength. You came here today carrying whatever burdens you've been carrying, whatever pain you've been holding, whatever stories you've been telling yourself about who you are and what you deserve. And now you're leaving with something new, a direct experience of what it feels like to treat yourself with genuine love and respect. This feeling, this energy, this new way of being with yourself, it's not going anywhere. It lives in you now. You can access it anytime you choose to pause, place your hand on your heart, and remember that you are worthy of your own love exactly as you are in this moment. The world needs you to love yourself. It needs your unique gifts, your particular way of seeing, your special brand of magic. But you can only share these gifts freely when you're not constantly questioning your own worth, when you're not hiding parts of yourself out of fear or shame. When you love yourself well, you give others permission to do the same. When you treat yourself with kindness, you become a beacon of possibility for everyone around you. Your healing ripples out in ways you may never even know about, touching lives and opening hearts simply through the energy you carry. So go gently with yourself as you continue this journey. Remember that loving yourself isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a practice you return to again and again. Some days the practice will feel easy and natural. Other days it will feel challenging and forced. Both kinds of days are part of the path. Trust that you have everything you need inside you right now to take the next loving step. Trust that your heart knows the way home to itself. Trust that you are worthy of all the love you're learning to give yourself, not because of what you do or achieve or become, but simply because you exist, because you're here, because you matter. Take a moment now to place both hands on your heart one more time. Feel the warmth, feel the love, feel the commitment you're making to yourself, and know that every time you make this choice, the choice to be kind to yourself, to speak to yourself with love, to treat yourself as someone precious, you're not just healing yourself, you're healing the world. The love you give yourself today creates ripples that will touch lives you may never meet in ways you may never know. So love yourself well, dear one. Love yourself fully. Love yourself now. You are so very worth it, and you always have been.